What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Blindside Sports. Now, I know if you follow me on Twitter, you're like, there's supposed to be a third person here. We have Rian Burschinger from Swing Shift and Fox Sports Radio, but our guy Bo, want to give a huge shout out to Bo and his wife. She's currently dealing with giving birth to their first child. So good luck to Bo and his wife. Sucks you couldn't be here, but it's for a good cause. But we have Rian Burschinger at Rian Burschinger on Twitter, also co-host of the Swing Shift podcast, which you can find over on Twitter and Instagram at Swing Shift R&B. And you can listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Swing Shift R&B. Rian, welcome to the show.
Emmett, thank you. Yeah, it was supposed to be both of us, but I guess things came up. So obviously, yeah, we're wishing for the best for Bo and Victoria and Chloe. Will maybe by the end of this episode,
one of us will get the message. Yeah.
yeah. Chloe will come into the world in the middle
Chloe
of this interview.
Yep. Go get Bo on Twitter and give him some shout outs at Bo T Benson if you want to go check out some very entertaining tweets about him raging about the Los Angeles Lakers 24/7. I'd recommend it. He gets very fired up about his Lakers. And he also has some good movie takes, I guess.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad we're complimenting him because that's hard for me to do. But very nice, Emmett.
See, I'm saving. I have to be professional for this podcast. If it was any other time, if he was out like I don't know, like at a party or something, then he'd be getting ripped. But I'm saving my my roasting for when I interview Gascon because he's gonna start doing it too.
yeah, you might as well save all that for that will be 2 hours of nothing but ripping Gascon. So I'm glad.
Think if I were a middleman and I put him, Iowa Sam, and you, Rian Burschinger, all in like the same Zoom meeting, podcast, whatever, it would just be roast after roast. And the Sunday show you guys work on, it just goes crazy. And also, if you guys don't know, Rian Burschinger loves food and he loves Sprite cranberry. So that's a fun fact about Bursch. But I gotta ask you, Rian, because this fed up a lot of the Dodger fans the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, our guy Clayton Kershaw was about to throw a perfect game. He was in the 7th inning, and he got like 14 strikeouts. And Dave Roberts decided to pull him. Now, I don't think you've gotten to take your anger out on the air yet. It's happened on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I know we agree on this. So I'm gonna let you go first and handle this one.
Yeah. Bo and I have yet to record since that game. So I have a lot of thoughts about it. In short, to start off, I hate it, but I get it. Now for my very long explanation. So this is the tough thing about being a baseball fan, especially, right? This comes into play in terms of any sort of fandom that you have with any sport, where there are times where you have to learn how to separate your emotional fan from your logical fan.
Mm-hmm.
And especially as a baseball fan, I find that comes into play very often, especially with the Dodgers. And the reason behind that is, look, Clayton Kershaw is my favorite player of all time. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I had to deal with a lot of my life listening to people give hot takes about his postseason performances, which I'm not going to get into, but you can't just read the numbers of Clayton Kershaw's postseason performances and completely ignore context to any and every one of those games. That's beside the point. That I will go on such a huge tangent on that. We're not going to go there. But I love Clayton Kershaw. I love him as a pitcher. I love him as a person. I don't know him personally, but everything I've seen of him as a person, he seems to be a phenomenal
like a good dude.
human.
Yeah. Also, fun fact: went to high school with Matthew Stafford too. So that's cool.
I heard. That's been mentioned here and there. Very interesting. When it's Clayton and it's his first start of the season, and he's got a perfect game going, I felt so weird because after the 5th inning, I noticed, and I'm like, God, I know what's going to happen. I know exactly how this is going to go. If he has a perfect game going, he's not going to finish that game because of the fact that you've got a shortened spring training coming into the season with a guy who has injured every portion of his upper torso in the last 3 years. Let's be honest. Like Kershaw has had back issues, he's had arm issues, he's had everything.
Yeah, he's dealt with it all. He's a renaissance man in the injury department.
Exactly. And perfect, Evan. And so not only that, he didn't start really throwing at all until this past January. He took this offseason differently because he was recovering from injury.
Mm-hmm.
So given all these parameters, he wasn't going to throw more than 80 pitches, which is what he ended up with. Even then, that was high in terms of what he was going to expect to throw. And coming into the game, I'm sure they thought 75 at the most, as it was, regardless of what happened. So when you get like 5 innings in and I notice what's going on, and not only is he throwing a perfect game, but his pitch count is incredibly low for a start period. Like he was very economical, even with all the strikeouts. He could have finished a Maddox, like, let's be honest. But I knew. And so after the 5th, I started thinking in my head, like, I hate to say this, but I kind of hope they get somebody on base, because I do not want to deal with what the dialogue is going to be, because I know exactly what's going to happen right now. And it went exactly as I thought. He finished that 6th inning. He came back out for the 7th. You saw Roberts talking to Clayton in the dugout after the 6th. Trinan was starting to get up in the bullpen, and I'm thinking, like, oh God, this is we're going to have worst case scenario here. And then he comes out for the 7th. He still looks fantastic. His slider was starting to wane a little bit. And he said in his last 2 innings, his slider looked awful, but I think shown not only in Kershaw's start, but in Andrew Haney's start the day before. Apparently the Minnesota Twins are completely incapable of touching sliders. Yeah. They cannot hit the slider whatsoever. Andrew Haney turned into a Cy Young candidate in 1 start in Minnesota. So these guys are just peppering them with sliders, and they're not hitting it. The only person who could hit against Haney was Carlos Correa, who was not in the lineup against Kershaw, which was interesting. So now Kershaw gets through 7. He's got the perfect game going. He's at 80 pitches. And I'm thinking, like, the emotional part of me is saying, let him, for the love of God, finish this game. Because for one, he's got a very real shot at throwing a perfect game. Those are incredibly rare. That is going to be etched into his Hall of Fame plaque. Right underneath world champion. I don't care what anyone says about the 2020 World Series. World champion's the first thing that's going to come up on Kershaw's resume. And it will have a perfect game and a no-hitter, all his Cy Youngs and MVP award, everything, every accolade that he has. So, of course, I want him to do it. I want it. But I know not only how the Dodgers management operates, I know how baseball operates in general at this point. And the point I was making was that, and this is where the logical side has to come in. Again, he's an aging pitcher who's dealt with every injury imaginable over the last couple seasons. It's his first start of the season in an abbreviated spring. He was going to be kept to a limited pitch count. It's just how it is. And I don't know any manager in the majors who would have kept going, who wouldn't have had the conversation with him and be like, look, this is where we're at right now. We kind of have to stick to this plan because we have bigger aspirations here. I get it. Brandon Hyde of the Orioles came out that day and he was like, if John Means is throwing a perfect game through 7, you best believe he's still going after that inning. Yeah, he should, because you're the Baltimore Orioles. You do not have championship aspirations. You need to have something for your fans to root for. So, like, if you think about the Orioles last season, what was their story? John Means threw a no-hitter. Yep. Trey Mancini was a great comeback story. Cedric Mullins was a breakout player. They lost over 100 games.
Yeah, they were not good. They were trash.
Yeah. You have to think about what's important based on the team. And for the Dodgers, especially this season, where there are more questions than there has been over the past few years in terms of what their starting rotation is going to look like throughout the season, you need Kershaw to be there. You need him he's not going to throw 200 innings. He's not. He's probably going to get hurt at some point, and there will be talking heads who will be like, oh, I told you so. Look at, there he is. He got hurt. Why couldn't they have just risked it in the perfect game? He could have gotten hurt then. That's different. That's not, that doesn't fully equate. The point is, it's how that game was going to go. And this is the state of Major League Baseball, quite frankly, is the entire purpose of spring training. We talked about this on our last podcast, was the entire purpose of spring training is to build up pitchers, to get them ready for the season. And there was a shortened spring training. And as I talked about on the last podcast, I've realized I hate spring training because of how much.
You said that on Twitter too. You're like, it's because everyone overreacts. Like I remember seeing stuff on Twitter, Bursch, about, because the Dodgers were, weren't doing too hot in spring training, and other teams, and they'd be like, oh, their season's over. And it's like, dude, it's kind of like the NFL preseason, right? I mean, people don't really overreact to that as much. I've noticed it a lot more in spring training. And I think everyone was just so jumpy to have baseball because of what happened with the lockout for 3 months. And everyone was just, there was times where our guy, Bernie Fratto, who, was a former guest on this podcast and definitely gonna come back again, said where he doesn't know if we could, if we're gonna have a full season. We could be delayed a while. And for us to get in that step, I think everyone was just so baseball happy. And I do agree, spring training is annoying because it's like any other preseason for a sport. No one knows what you're gonna see. It's not the regular season. It's different. It's the young guys, backups, all this, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't count. And,
exactly.
Yeah. You got more on Kershaw, or?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to, fully go off the rails with my thoughts on Kershaw here, but basically to kind of summarize my feelings on it. Of course I wanted it to happen. And I was really quite angry about the way it went down.
Impulse tweets.
yeah. And, but the thing is like, I'm not going to stomp my feet and try to get Dave Roberts fired, which, obviously Bo tweeted that. You have to
Why
understand.
Is that conversation I gotta say, and yes. Bo trolls on Twitter all the time.
Yes, like exactly.
And but there's actual Dodgers fans who I think this is an LA thing, Burschinger. You live there, you probably know more than I do. But I know that the Lakers, the Rams, and I don't know if it's just Bo Benson or who it is, our first shot has been taken after like 15 minutes about Bo Benson. But he had a break. But I don't know if it's just him because he just impulse tweets, and I'm guilty of it too. Every sports fan who's on Twitter is guilty of it. Who actively tweets. It's a thing. But the LA sports fans, man, you guys, you just tweet the most wild things. Like the Lakers fan base. I follow a topic on Twitter, Burschinger, and it's Lakers, tweet like Los Angeles Lakers topic, and it's all these bipolar Laker fans where they just tweet out a bunch of praising LeBron and then praising Vogel, and then a game later they get blown up by 30 by the New Orleans Pelicans on national TV, and then fire Vogel, screw LeBron, this guy sucks. It's like I kind of know about the Dodgers too, because for the past like 6 years I feel like this whole Dave Roberts thing has came up, and it's not just you and Bo Benson, it's not just Ben Maller or Roberto or all the Dodgers fans, it's just random people. Oh, screw Dave Roberts. I'm like, the only way Roberts is getting fired is if like there's a 2-year stretch where the Dodgers don't do anything and don't make the playoffs. And I know you have a lot on Kershaw, but I want to say this, Bursch, is I actually, I'm pretty much with you. I did not like the move, but it's business. I mean, and I got to shout out Kershaw for handling it really well. I don't know if you guys checked out his presser where he basically said, it sucks, but it had to happen. And I feel like, okay, maybe could have asked, hey, how you doing? How you feeling? Dave Roberts could have. But then again, a lot of players would lie and be like, I'm doing completely fine, even when they're starting to feel that, that tingling in their arm or, whatever it is. And I just feel like, I'd love to see, Clayton Kershaw, perfect game, through 9 innings. But then again, do you want to see Clayton Kershaw out a month with arm soreness or something stupid like that, or something even worse, Tommy John? I know it's not going to get to that. I mean, hopefully not, but it's just like, it's the risk, man. And that you're right. That's what what Major League Baseball has come to. And, as a guy who watches the Dodgers quite closely, watches, Mariners quite closely, I see, a lot of different angles because the Mariners aren't good and the Dodgers are like, the Dodgers are like, best team in the MLB, like the moves they've been doing the past couple of years. Like first you brought in Mookie Betts and then you brought in Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. And then, this offseason was Freddie Freeman, which shook everything up. And that was not expected. I know in your swing shift episode, you and Bo were talking about how there's a better chance of J-Lo knocking on Bo's door. So I just think, maybe that will happen. I
guess
live in LA. I mean, yeah, but I just feel like it, as much as we can sit and cry about it and be salty, I mean, Rob Parker blasted Dave Roberts and he said it is robbed. And I hear what he's saying. And, Bursch, those topics where you're like, I'm not picking a side, I'm in the middle. I get and I can agree with both sides of view on this one.
Yeah.
Besides the fire Roberts, because it's what he had to do. Right. It's Major League Baseball. I mean,
yeah.
Everything's just different. Like NBA players, are load managing, or as Fox Sports Radio legend Bobo says, sitting out games. And I think the only reason he's salty is our guy Bobo, who's a big Laker apologist, went to one of Kobe's final games and Kobe was not playing. And I think he's actually still angry about it, like 6 years later, which is understandable because Kobe freaking Bryant, like, of course. But yeah, it's just business, business and feelings are different things. And like I said, Bursch, Clayton could not have handled that better because I feel like there'd be some players in the majors who would throw a fit about it, right? And they'd be like, "Screw Dave Roberts, get me out of the Dodgers." Just all this stuff that LA media goes crazy too. So we'd still be talking about that today. Like, it would not be good. So I respect Kershaw for handling it the way he did. He basically said, it's not like I'm getting, all these pitches. I'm expecting a lower pitch count this year. Yeah, it sucks, but stuff happens. It's basically what he said. So
right.
I thought that was really good of him.
I think so too. And you touched on a handful of very significant things. And one thing I kind of want to just kind of encapsulate all of it with is this: when Bo and I were talking about after Kershaw's start, and he sent me along a tweet somebody and mentioned where they made a very good point. She basically said, this is kind of a result of championship or bust mentality, right? And this is kind of the danger of championship or bust mentality, because when you are so insanely hyper focused on winning a World Series and nothing else matters, how can you fully then enjoy the process of getting there? Baseball is 162 games. And that is a very, very long time. That goes over a whole portion
every day too. Yeah. Basically every day. A couple of days off here and there, but it's not like NFL where it's once a week. It's grind until October.
And this is something where you're hitting on, which is the fact that this is kind of a mentality that gets pretty bad among LA fans specifically. I've noticed that my entire life. And it's because we've been spoiled. I grew up in the Kobe Shaq era Lakers, where it was a very real possibility that they could win 4 championships in a row at one point. Like I remember three-peat being a thing, and then I remember people chanting Quattro as for 4 in a row the following season. They didn't get that one, but the point is like, we as LA fans, especially my age, have grown up with that era Lakers, where we expected a title every season. And sometimes we would actually get that. And at one point, it was a majority of the time. And when you get that level of treatment from your sports teams, you kind of then expect it elsewhere. You kind of look towards the Dodgers. And of course, this city was starving for a Dodger title. And that's why 2020 was so important. And it's really a shame that we weren't able to fully celebrate that, because
I hope that the Dodgers go back to the World Series and you can go to Dodger Stadium and watch that live, because man, that would be like, I know Roberto, let's just say, he celebrated, and you know, if you listen to the Ben Maurer show from the time the the Dodgers won. It was it was interesting. And it, the Lakers won. Okay, yeah, they won. It was cool. But to see all, everyone in LA, just how much significance that had to the city. And I just want to say too, with the LA thing, how you've kind of grown up around it. Me as a younger guy, I started, getting into sports and like being able to comprehend it right when Russell Wilson got drafted. I'm 17, about to be 18. And Russell Wilson, for me, he, I never experienced the crappy Seahawks days. I never experienced that until, obviously we had the little 2017 thing where Blair Walsh costed us like 3 games, but oh God. But I never experienced that to where now, like, you've seen some of my takes on Twitter about the Seahawks and you're probably like, what is this guy? Like it is a kind of like, because obviously the Mariners are just they're there. They're not very good. That's why I like
they're getting there.
They are getting there.
They have a lot
really
of talent.
close last year. Yeah. They're starting to do the right thing, and getting shut out by the Twins the other night, kind of, but it's early. It's early, but yeah. I just feel, growing up in these cities where you're, like New England, Patriots fans are a-holes. Like growing up in those cities where your teams are just so good for years and years and years. You forget how bad, how to be a bad team.
Right.
That's where these tweets come out. And that's why all of these Dodger fans, a lot of them were just having Dave Roberts. Like if it was trash talking Tuesday that day, Dave Roberts would be getting all the heat. So it was, it was not very, if I was Dave Roberts, getting a lot of heat. But yeah.
No, and I get it. And again, the whole it's fine. Obviously wanting to win titles is the goal. Like that's the dream. We as fans want to experience our team winning titles because it's insanely fun, and there's no disappointment. for lack of a better, I know that sounds stupid, but like when you're a fan of a sports team, you grow accustomed to disappointment because the reality is they're not going to win a championship every season. So you're going to experience disappointment, and you're probably going to experience disappointment a majority of the time. But yeah, especially with LA fans, like the titles really truly mean something. And they got very used to it. And so when you fall short of it, it can be rather frustrating. And I'm not trying to crush the notion of wanting to win titles. Obviously, it's super important. But relating this to the Kershaw start, if the team really truly cared about creating a moment that would live forever in Major League Baseball history, then Kershaw would not have been pulled from that game.
I agree. Yep.
And if you're looking at that game and not viewing it as a early April, early season game, where it's just a stepping stone as a part of many stepping stones on your journey to a World Series, if you're not thinking about October and April, then Kershaw gets a chance to finish that game. And you should obviously always be thinking about October. Every team should always be thinking about the championship because that is the goal, that is the aspiration, and you're trying to do everything that you can to get yourself there. But when you're so hyper focused on that, it can rob you of very awesome moments that remind us as fans why we love the sport. And it will rob the sport itself of attention. Like Clayton Kershaw,
can you imagine if you got a perfect game? That was
exactly. It's like a huge deal.
I know, there's only like a couple national radio, shows that really just go into Major League Baseball. And, I'm sure like a lot, like Big Ben, he a huge Major League Baseball guy. That's where I hear most of my baseball stuff. Like it's not, it's mentioned, but like you don't have everyone doing all these, main monologues about Major League Baseball like you used to. I feel like if Kershaw were to throw a perfect game, he would get it would go blow up sports radio, sports TV. We'd hear, Broussard and Nick Wright on Undisputed, or, like Stephen A, like all these guys on like these debate TV shows. It would rock the sports world, I think, because it's perfect game. Like the last one, like, our guy, as a Mariners guy, King Felix
Yep.
Hernandez. That rocked the world too. I remember, just getting into baseball when that happened. When he threw the no-hitter, I mean, everyone, or perfect game, everyone was just losing it. So
Yeah.
I just think, especially now with like Twitter, it would just there is, that's kind of I made a point on Twitter. I'm like, yeah, they're like history. I mean, history is just something you like can't repeat. And I'm sure Kershaw, like I said, the way he handled this, I don't know if I could handle it that good. I think I'd be a little heated. Like it was just, man, it makes me angry, but I completely understand it. Like you said.
Right. Yeah, it's that's what the frustrating thing is. And I feel like this is the kind of thing where, like, you have right now, Adam Silver is trying to nip load management in the butt, right? Like, he's trying to make sure that teams are getting their star talent out there more often, so that way you don't have situations like Bobo faced, where he goes and pays out the nose to go to a Laker game and Kobe's not playing. In the same sense, Major League Baseball kind of has to step forward and say, look, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you incentivize literally throwing a perfect game. Like, how do you offer greater incentive to that? But at the same time, like, Major League Baseball has to step forward and kind of remind teams, like, look, the regular season matters too. Having awesome moments in the regular season is important. And I've always, like, very much as a Dodger fan, again, and this is from a very privileged perspective, because, like, I'm a fan of a team that can easily win 100 games year in and year out. I've said plenty of times, look, like, the month of April doesn't matter because it's way too early. The month of September doesn't matter because the Dodgers are up by a ton at that point. And it used to be at a time where, they don't have it anymore. But when you expand the rosters to 40, the way that Dave would manage the team in September would be different than the way he would manage in the postseason, because he had such deeper rosters. He's just giving people playing time, giving people rest. You kind of take it easy. You kick your feet up a little bit. It's very easy to fall into lulls in the Major League Baseball season because it's so long, because there's so many games. And even though, like, there are plenty of Dodger fans, especially after last season, will be like, hey, every game counts. Like, we were one game shy of the division. The Giants still won the division and finished a game ahead of us. Yeah, but the Dodgers also eliminated them in the postseason, so that really didn't matter. So in the grand scheme of things, yes, one game can make a difference, but that also, we got to remember that one game can be any of a handful. Like, there's 80 different games in the season that can be that one game that makes a difference. So point is, it was a perfect mix of something that was going to backfire. Clayton Kershaw, we've got to focus on the positives, and that's the fact that Kershaw coming back from injury looked fantastic. The man literally threw 7 perfect innings. He struck out 13. Like, he looked phenomenal. And this is also, a season in which, like, he hit free agency. He only got a 1-year deal because he was kind of rebuilding his value after all the injuries that he's faced.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't know, as Dodger fans, there was a lot of times during the offseason. Yeah, we thought maybe he could retire. Maybe he could actually leave for Texas because he's from there. He would maybe want to play closer to home. There were a lot of times where we're thinking, like, when he got pulled from his last regular season start because of injury, we're thinking, like, Jesus, is that the last time we see Kershaw pitch for the Dodgers? Like that? Is that how we have to watch his Dodger career end? And thankfully, no, we got to see him just absolutely dominate to start off this season. And one last thing I want to say on this, the other reason why I really do wish that he finished that perfect game is because I wanted to go back and pull up the Deadspin article written by one Rob Parker, in which he said that the Dodgers should let Kershaw walk because he's not as good as he once was. And
Kershaw should leave. Ryan burschinger. Kershaw's not good. He's washed up.
That's a good one. Well done. In which he was saying, like, why would Dodger fans want to, watch Kershaw be a shell of himself? And 1 start in, and
Rob ate his words
Not a
again.
shell of Kershaw at all. I mean, again, he could still very well be right. Like Kershaw could get hurt at any point and be done for the season. It's the state of his body. It's kind of how it is. Hopefully, though, that's not what happens. And yeah, it's a very exciting that's the way that Clayton started the season. You know, it's unfortunate because all people are going to talk about is the controversy, but the reality is the man just
13
pitched.
strikes is not
It's the best start of the season thus far. I know it's only been a week, but he just pitched the single best game of the season thus far. So like, that's something we got to take a ton of solace in and be very excited about the fact that Clayton Kershaw looked fantastic.
Yep. This is Blindside Sports, Emmett Douglas, along with Swing Shift's legend, Rian Burschinger. Get him on Twitter at Rian Burschinger. Get me at EmmettNoC04. And you can go follow the show on Instagram where I post abbreviated clips at Blindside Sports 00. And I also do on TikTok at Blindside Sports 7. Now, if you guys don't know Rian Burschinger, I like to, kind of, slide out of sports, and, I'm sure sports will get brought up, but Ryan, right now, I got to ask you as a food guy, you are the, what do they call you? Like the Jonas, what do you call you? With
the garbage disposal is
the garbage
what
disposal of FSR, Rian Burschinger. You are the garbage disposal. You eat anything.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you, what is the most overrated fast food? I have to know.
Oh boy,
this could be hot takes from Rian Burschinger right here.
Overrated. That's man. I mean,
okay. I got to ask you before, because I have one. I wouldn't say it's overrated because it's kind of irrelevant. Do you guys have a restaurant called Taco Time?
No.
Okay, good. One of my friends works there, and if he's listening, that's a complete shot. That place is horrible, and as Jonas would say, you end up on the toilet.
Overrated. It's hard. Okay, so I think I put Burger King low on the power rankings. I don't. I've very rarely, sparingly visited Burger King, but I will say this though, the Impossible Whopper is surprisingly good.
Oh God, you would.
It is. I'm not, dude. I've told this story.
Did Alex Tyshirt buy it for you?
No. I saw it in a commercial, and oddly enough, like this is exactly how commercials are supposed to work, right? You see it and you go, "Oh, I want it," so you go get it. So that's exactly what happened. These jerks get me. And this was years ago, and I went with a friend of mine, and it was like a Tuesday night at like 9:30. It's late at night, and there's no reason for them to be trying at all at a Burger King and late on a Tuesday night. They're just gonna, slap the things on the bun and throw it out the window. There's no reason for them to actually like put any sort of heart and soul into their product at that point. It was excellent. Like it tasted like like an actual burger. And it was very well crafted.
Yeah, put the Impossible meat. I've wondered that. I've never had
they
the guts
just
to
put
try
actual
it.
meat on it.
Yeah, I've wondered. And because I've heard actual people, it's not just you, who say it's real, right? Like it tastes legit. And I'll say, I'm kind of with you on Burger King, but what I will say is that I used to be, a big Burger King. Like, I thought it was slept on because they used to be really like surprisingly cheap, but everything's gone up, and they kind of started going up before everyone else. But they had like at least the Burger Kings in my area, they had like a year streak of I was just like, God, this place stinks. And I go there a couple months ago, right? And I like a big burger, and I hope this doesn't get chopped up because I could say something that sounds like a drop. I like a big burger, lots of sauce on it, got to slap the sauce, ketchup, mayonnaise, the Bacon King is what I get, or the chicken fries, and it was just not good. And I get a random hankering. I'm with one of my friends. I'm like, dude, we should go to Burger King, because we were thinking about getting food, and, kind of same scenario as you, like but it was a late weekend. Go there. It's like they turned their whole place around. Fries were warm. Fries were salted. The burger was just, I was so shocked by a Burger King. It never. Yeah. And I think, also, underrated, you can give yours, but God, the Dairy Queen chicken strips. I don't know if you've had them, but after the show, if you haven't, I'm gonna pull a commercial hit on you. Go get a chicken strip basket, get some queso for your fries.
Ooh.
To die for. It's sneakily good.
There is actually a Dairy Queen around the corner from my house, and I've never eaten there. I'm always tempted though, because I really like Orange Julius, and I know that it still exists.
Dude, you gotta go check for now. You have to, because the Dairy Queens in my area, I'm with you. The Orange Julius is just it number one. But I went there looking for one, and this California, you guys might still have them because California, but go there. They're like, oh yeah, we don't have that anymore. I'm like, come on, Dairy. We're gonna look this up, right? Hold on. Yeah. But get in your underrated.
Underrated. That's the thing. I think that half fast food is actually underrated, because I'm weird. I like that. I eat everything because I legitimately enjoy everything. I think Arby's is good. I don't know why people complain about it. I think Arby's is good.
I think we're alike.
Yeah. I mean, like, my top is like, I love Taco Bell. I love Del Taco. I love, I'm always like, McDonald's is of course always solid. I think Wendy's is underrated, because I think there's a surprisingly good variety at Wendy's. The fact I can get like a good baked potato at Wendy's is All
right, hold on. We have a breaking news here.
Oh, good.
So I've Googled Dairy Queen Orange Julius, right? On the computer, and 2 results come up saying to take me to the Dairy Queen menu. So I'm just gonna say I think it's a Washington thing, and I'm very angry. This needs to be fixed. Dairy Queen, if you're listening, stop it.
Emmett, you're gonna have to contact your local Congress people and make sure that they get this into state law and say, look,
what I'm
I don't know what's going on here.
Pull a Rob Parker. What's my beef? Oh, that's what they traded it out for. Go on a tangent here. These grape ice cream slushies, man. It was the weirdest thing. And, I had it wasn't very good. Ice cream with a slushy, I'm sorry. And especially grape and ice cream. Give me that mango, the mango one, mango Orange Julius any day of the week over that. Absolutely. But yeah, I'm with you. Taco Bell, I love. I also the Dairy Queen. You gotta go get it after the show. I'm you tweet out a report, and then if the garbage disposal doesn't like it, then I guess I took over your nickname, and you should bring that up on Jonas's show tomorrow.
Yes, I'll get that in the next couple days. I can't eat meat today, but we'll look it after Friday, in the next week. Oh
man, I'm sure you're struggling. Me talking about all the chicken.
Funny story is, so I love the fillet of fish at McDonald's, and I only get it during Lent because it's half price. I always forget about it when outside of Lent, because typically if I'm going to McDonald's, I'm getting a burger. But I always forget how much I like it, and $5 is a little steep for it.
It is.
When it's $2.50 on Fridays during Lent, I jump all over that. So
wait, hold on. I gotta ask you. Now that you bring that up, is that through the app, or is that just like?
Oh, it's in person. You can.
I didn't even know that.
It's 2 for $5. Or buy one get one free. But yeah, you get one for $2.50. So I went to McDonald's here in Simi. I live in Simi Valley, California, and I walked in because the drive-through line was really long, and I go in to order. This just happened like 2 hours ago, and so I walk up, and this poor guy, I felt really bad for the guy working, because it was clear that something was going on that day, because the drive-through was very long, and I was in line behind somebody who had just complained about their order, and so I walk up and I ask to get a fillet of fish, and he says, oh, it's $5.30 or whatever. And I'm like, isn't it? It's $2.50 today. It's Friday during Lent.
You pulled a Rob Parker.
Yes. This is one of the times where I will do that.
I'm with you. Their fish sandwiches. I like good fish sandwich and all that.
Yeah.
But I just can't pay that $5.50. That's just
Well, what happened is the kid kind of got flustered. He's like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, for whatever reason, and I think it's probably because this is the last Friday And maybe it's not like it anymore. Maybe they changed, but they shouldn't have. It should still be in effect this Friday because the rules are still in place. So, but I think the machine had already reverted to back to
Oh,
$5. So he's like trying to manually do it,
just give you
and then he
two.
just he just goes, just here, and then he charges a penny, and he goes, here, it's 1 cent, but I'm just gonna say that you put it in the drawer, so you're good. And I'm like, oh,
Wait,
thank you. So I got a free fillet of fish today.
God, I remember,
very nice.
times, or if you go to, this has been a thing even pre-COVID, and it makes sense, but I went to Taco Bell and I asked for something off of my order and they didn't do it. And my friend's like, yeah, you can get more food if you do. So I pulled a Rob Parker too, you got to be very polite about it, right? I'm sure Rob Parker going in there, he's a big guy, like 6'5", but I'm sure that'd be scary. But I went up there, I'm like, hey, you got my order wrong. And I was like expecting to give him the food back, right? Like I thought he was trolling. It was like, oh, you either throw that away or keep it. So, obviously, I'm not gonna like take advantage of these, minimum wage Taco Bell workers. But like, if it does ironically happen and you're not like deathly allergic and you can tolerate the thing that they put on your thing, then that they messed up, then hey, man. I mean, yeah, I still remember last summer. This is probably what you're talking about people, complaining. DoorDash drivers are the biggest douches on the earth. I'm sorry. My friend works at Taco Bell and he tells me stories, and I saw this one, live in action. I was in Oregon last summer visiting family, and we, Washington and parts of Oregon had a pretty bad heat wave.
Mhm.
So like it was at least like 100, like it was pretty hot, right? So me and my cousin go down to Baskin Robbins, get ice cream, whatever. And we're in line, everyone and their brother is like, ice cream's on fire right now because it's 100, degrees. And we go there and, I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm like, yeah, about to get this ice cream. And this DoorDash lady drives in, right? Walks in. And, it was getting to the point also, it was so hot that the freezers couldn't keep up with it. And this lady starts to get mad and throw a fit because she had another order in her car and the Baskin Robbins was taking too long. And I'm like, dude, what do it's 100 degrees on a Saturday and you expect, hey, this line's going to be short. I'm going to get this ice cream real quick. Why don't you deliver the other order, come back and, I would just, yeah, the audacity, man. It's pretty funny.
When you were talking about, I remember this one time. This is having to do with not necessarily taking advantage of fast food places, but
I've never done that. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no. When I was in high school, a friend of mine worked at a McDonald's in town, and he told us one day, he's like, hey, the credit card machine isn't working at the McDonald's, so like when it broke, they just had to give all the food to people who said they didn't have cash, that they would just be a free order. And so me and my friends are like, God. Oh, great. So he's saying like, yeah, if you go there and say that you don't have cash, they'll give you the food for free. So we go that night and we pull up into the drive-thru. And the person says, hi, before we take your order, we're only accepting cash right now. Is that all right? And I go, oh, no, we only have card. And she goes, okay, well, sorry. And then I sit there and I'm like, why did I think this was going to go any differently? Like, why did I think that this person would suddenly go, oh, okay, we'll just give you the food for free then? I think,
okay,
we all sat there going, like, why did we believe that? Why did we believe
the only reason that, that would work is if like you order your food, like I bet the first guy got real lucky, you know, and they're like, oh, our machine. That's not going to work any later.
I'm sure it happened to like one or two people that were in line and had already placed their order, and the card machine went out in the time between them placing the order and picking it up. Every person after that, I'm sure, was told, hey, we're only taking cash. We're not going to give you the food for free if you don't have cash. So we all felt so stupid. And we called my friend. I'm like, why did you tell us that this? And they're like, I don't know. Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the amount of funny stuff that happens with fast food. Now I gotta ask you, what did you do to make yourself the garbage disposal at a FSR? Well, I know Justin Cooper's had like a day old hot dog. But, like, what'd you do?
I don't know if there was anything specific. Well, I mean, any food that's left on the table.
Wait,
in the
does
kitchen,
Jonas still bring food for you guys like he used to on the overnights during quarantine?
No, not anymore. Only because I mean, he was already going well out of his way to do it. It was a very nice gesture.
How do you do? Because he was at home. Like, did you have to go get it or Perfect?
At the time, he lives in Thousand Oaks, which is where I used to live. We used to live pretty close to one another. It's about 35 minutes from our studio in Sherman Oaks. And
did you move farther from the studio or?
Kind of. Simi Valley is just like a little bit north of Thousand Oaks, but so the drive is basically the same. It's fine. But yeah, he would go, and it would be on Friday nights, and he would put in an order at his brother's restaurant. His brother owns the Sunset Terrace Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, which is really good. And obviously I've tried a lot of their food now. It's very good. They're I think it's called Baja shrimp. It's a bacon wrapped shrimp. It's fantastic. And the sauce that they do it in is like a chili, a sweet chili sauce. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's great. So if you're anybody who's ever in Thousand Oaks, Sunset Terrace is owned by Jonas's brother. And so he would go pick it up and then drive it to my place, which like was well out of his way.
Has he been to your like inside your house? Like, do you guys ever hang out? Like,
no.
Oh, that's probably a good thing. He like if you had like your controller, your like computer out, he'd be like, this guy, he'd use it against you on the radio, like Jonas.
No, he knew where I would pick it up outside. It was in an apartment complex.
Oh yeah, well, in the apartment
outside. Yeah. But I've never been to his place, but Sam has. Sam crashed his place one time apparently. So
yeah, we know. Yeah. I was Sam. He had too much to drink. Knowing him.
Yeah. So
I'm sure Lita Lap has too.
Probably, I wouldn't be surprised. It's probably a normal thing. But no, yeah, it was. Jonas was always so incredibly generous to.
Oh yeah, Jonas he's been on the show too. Really nice guy. Really. Yeah. You kind of think listening to him, you're like, this guy kind of sounds like mean, but he's not. He's, like bullying. He really goes in on Iowa Sam and Lita Lap, and he takes it kind of easy on you. I mean,
he does.
In Perfect too. He likes Perfect.
Yeah. I think it's just it's too easy to give crap to Sam. It's just too and he gets so rough, and Jonas loves watching people squirm when he gives them crap. So it happens to Sam all the time. I'm pretty like I just laugh at things, and so he doesn't have quite as much fun giving me crap as he does with Sam. But
Lee seems so chill. Like, I wonder why. He really, like, whenever Lee's out, he's like he's off drinking or something like that. Seem like
he will. Yeah. He'll do that whenever his normal producers will be off for the week.
I remember one time you were off, and he's like, "Yeah, he's face down in a ditch on the 405 right now."
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And then someone actually like, he's like, "I was joking," because apparently people would tweet in. And be like...
Yeah. God, no, it's so funny. I love working with Jonas. He's truly one of the hardest working people I've ever met, and he's incredibly nice, incredibly genuine.
And funny too.
He's just he's a very friendly dude. Everybody gets along with him. And it was so cool when when he got the Two Pros show.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, talk about a guy who, worked, this guy would do, sometimes he'd do the Odd Couple, filling for Broussard, and then come do his overnight show, or do Doug Gottlieb, and then do overnight. And back in the days, doing updates and produce and doing all this stuff. And finally, people are calling the Vegas show full time, but he didn't really get to, give his full takes on things, and still working, the weekend. And then finally, I woke up and I go on Twitter, and the first thing I see is Jonas Knox, Brady Quinn, LeVar Arrington named to new Fox Sports morning show. I'm like, finally, like it.
Yeah.
Like seeing a guy like him where he just goes insane, like works all the time, and keep in mind, this guy has a wife too. Like, it's not like he, he's like, he has to balance his time very, very well. And he had to, now think he's more, so he doesn't have to work like 7 days a week and fill-ins. And yeah, I was so excited for him. And even, Brady and LeVar was really, like, I think, I know a guy on Twitter who just despises him, Shady Sean. I think he's trolling, so that's why I brought him up. But yeah, he makes jokes about LeVar all the time. But Jonas and Brady on Sunday nights, where I'm glad they put Covino and Rich in that spot, because they are similar to Jonas and Brady, where it's just, sports is obviously brought up, but it gets I like the off the rails radio, like kind of what we're doing right now. Like, it talked about McDonald's and then the Dodgers. And I gotta ask you, Burschinger, are you a Lakers guy, or
I've never been super into basketball. I've always followed it casually. I want the Lakers to do well, but like it's a very rare occasion where I actually like sit down and watch a game. So like all the stuff that's been going on with them this season didn't really faze me in any way.
Yeah, now I gotta ask you, Ryan. You worked at FSR for like a long time now, and you've worked on I think every show possible. What's the crazy? I know what you're gonna say. You can give me a couple then. What's the craziest thing that's happened on your shift?
Oh, okay. Craziest things that have happened. It typically will have to do with like either there's some weird connection issues and the host isn't on air. Those are typically that's always there was a time where Brian No was supposed to be on in like 20 minutes, and then his power had gone out that day because of the weather. The weather was terrible, and it was just not coming back on. And then he's like, well, he was lucky his sister had like a generator at her house, so he was able to like get to his sister's house and do it. But it's typically stuff like that where you kind of have to scramble for a good half hour, wondering, what in the world, how do I like every time we start to have issues with a Comrex, and it's a couple minutes before a show starts, and we're like not sure if we're gonna have a host on. I start thinking, like, if I had to do a show right now, what am I going to lead with? What in the world take am I going to have right now to start things out? In terms of like stuff actually happening on air, super crazy, I can't think of anything. I'm sure I'm going to kick myself later and remember something.
I have one that you're probably going to think of later.
Sure.
Yeah, obviously, walking out the FSR Twitter, but you were on Jonas's show a while ago, and it was towards the end of your time with him and on the overnights, and it was Guess That Garbage. And this guy calls in, and it was NASCAR George from South Carolina.
Yeah.
That guy was one of the weirdest callers that I think I've heard on sport. Like, I love it. He was just, I don't think that guy was sober. Like, there's no way he was naturally like, and it wasn't alcohol. It wasn't. Yeah, it was. But he, obviously, when you get on Jonas's Guess That Garbage, it's, pretty quick, fast paced. You're on there for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
This guy wouldn't just stop talking for, what was it, like 7 minutes. Like he
uninterrupted.
ruined the
He's just going
segment.
rapid fire.
And then
Yeah.
he thought that he was on the call screener with you, and he's like,
Yes.
and then Jones like, yeah, I'll put you on the air. He's like, hey, then he's like pretending to be you, and he's like, hey Jonas, let's go to NASCAR. George, he's ready.
Yes, that's a good one. That is a good one.
Didn't you shut down Jason Smith one time too, or like you were there when that happened, and something along those lines?
No, I was not.
Oh yeah,
I was not there when that happened. I have a theory as to what happened, but I'm not gonna. I won't go into it.
It was Bo Benson.
Hey, we'll just say it's Bo. Yeah.
No, we have to blame someone who doesn't work at the network anymore. Like, or I'm trying to think. It was actually, he still works there. It was Vince. I don't know where that guy went. Yeah.
That's. We'll say it was Vince. I mean, the craziest things that have happened, like while I'm working, it's typically always callers, and it's always late night callers.
Yeah, the daytime callers are tame. The late night,
even, and the weird ones that I'll get during the daytime will be like somebody, like an old person. Like this happened like twice in one show a couple weeks ago, where they asked
Odd Couple or Cavino.
No, it was on the weekend, and they called because they wanted to know what time Seton Hall was playing. It was like,
what did you say?
I said, I don't know. I could have looked it up for them, but I was just so baffled by them because there have been multiple people who call and they'll say like, we're trying to reach FS1 and our cable provider gave us this number, and I'm like, I don't know why they did that, because this is radio. We have nothing to do with them.
And it's the 877 number too, so it's just like, why?
Yeah. But the late night callers, especially on Ben's show and on when Jonas was on late at night.
Now Brian, no, but you don't work there. So.
Yeah, there are absolute characters, and a great majority of them I've always had very positive interactions with. Almost everyone from the Maller Militia I've had incredibly positive interactions.
I think they like you because of how bad your whole Twitter debacle, like the first time you were in there. Like,
I know that was fun. That was a complete accident. And what happened is I was trying to log on to the first of all, nobody should ever be logging out of the Twitter in the studio. I don't know why they did that, but they were setting me up to fail.
It was Bo Benson.
We'll say it was Bo, yeah. And I go to my email, because I have an email from my boss that has the Twitter login, and I'm copy and pasting the username and password. And every time I'm doing it, it's telling me no. And I'm like, I'm looking at the email. This is the password. There was another email somewhere where they had updated the password, and I wasn't, or no, it was not my fault. They had put the password was wrong on the email. Like, it wasn't updated. It wasn't that the password was updated. It's that the email that my boss had sent had misspelled the password. And so I'm sitting there like, what'd I do? And then so I got locked out for
who got you back in? Who was it?
Eventually I texted somebody else. I think I might have texted Elijah or somebody, and was like, can you tell me, or maybe it was Lee. I think I texted Lee. And I said,
you're lucky he remembered too, because it was late night.
Yeah, like, what is the Twitter password? And he sent it to me, and I'm looking at him like, this R is supposed to be capitalized. And then it's just, I guess there's a hint for the hackers out there. There's a capital R somewhere in that Twitter password.
It's probably changed. It's been like 3 years.
It's been a while.
I'd hope a national radio station would.
You would think,
yeah. Now, I gotta, speaking of, you'd think, David Gascon. What's the funniest Gascon moment you have?
Funniest Gascon moment. Gascon and I have a different relationship than most people have with Gascon, because, and I say that in a nice way. Like, I'm not. I mean, Gascon will, he razzes the hell out of Sam, and but Gascon and
even Bo Benson too. He goes,
oh yeah, he'll give Bo some mess, and that's fine. It's a good time. What's interesting with Gascon is that both him and I have the whole, like, how we're like, actors, like
Yeah.
kind of putting air quotes around it. Not he's actually acted in way more projects than I have, but him and I would talk about it as he was going through the process of like getting an agent and going out for auditions and stuff. So we've had some, we'll talk about that and catch up on that pretty often. And I've helped him with a couple of self-tape auditions in the studio, and that's always a good time. And he'll have to go out for like a lot of like, he's a cop or he's a businessman or like just stuff like that. So but I mean, he's doing well. Like he's actually like he's booked way more things than I ever have. It's and I've had like 2 auditions in the last year. So
Yeah, that guy was calls games on FS1, works the updates occasionally when he can, acts.
Right. Yes.
I'm sure there's more. He's David Gascon.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and that guy.
Yeah.
I give him a bunch of crap on Twitter, and I don't mean it at all. Like
no,
he's funny.
It. Yeah, and he's been very nice and gotten us breakfast multiple times on Sundays, and I've really yet to return that favor, so I should probably do that at some point. But
no, wait for Iowa Sam, because it will never happen.
Sam has even treated us. I'm the only one on that show who is not treated today, but I don't know if Steve's gotten anything, so it's all right. I'll hold that over Hardman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, that's right. Steve will bring Denise's cookies sometimes, and they are fantastic. So I can't. I've contributed absolutely nothing. So
I remember you guys always have the most epic food. Has Ralph done anything, or I don't know? Ralph doesn't seem that type of guy. He seems nice, but I don't think he's.
Ralph will partake if we get food.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I gotta ask you, Ryan, have you been to any crazy Dodger games? Have you been to any of the playoff games or whatever?
I was at game 6 of the 2017 World Series.
Oh, how was that? Oh man.
Yeah. It was incredible. It was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had. And the Dodgers won that game and forced game 7. When I woke up that morning, I did not have a ticket, or no, well, actually, technically, I did have a ticket when I woke up that morning. When I went to bed that night, I had no idea I was going to the game. And then I woke up the next morning with a bunch of calls from my friends. And because of, working at Fox Sports Radio, I would have weird hours of sleep. So I slept till like 11 that day. And I've got my calls and texts, and it's from my friends saying, we're going to go to the game tonight. Do you want to see you a ticket? We're buying tickets right now. Do you want one? We bought you a ticket. Because one of them was just like, he's going to want to go. He's going to want to.
Even if it didn't work, you have been a boss.
I know. Seriously. Luckily, I was off and everything worked out perfectly fine. And they were able to get them for like half the price of what they were, because it was I mean, we were literally last row near the right field foul pole. So
wow.
Yeah, which I loved because there were less people in that area. And so I feel like
that's sneakily underrated.
It is. Yeah. No, I love sitting high up because it's less likely you're going to be around a lot of people. I like being able to kind of, I'm a tall guy. I'm 6 feet. So I like to be able to stretch my legs a little bit. I like having that space from people. It's like during 2021 at the beginning of the season, when they only had like 10,000 fans in attendance, and they blocked off seats where you would only have 4 seats, and then all of the seats next to and in front and behind those sets of 4, nobody would sit there. So that was the dream. Like I went to one of those games. I'm like, this is fantastic. I don't have to sit next to anyone. This is great. But yes, no, I was at game 6 of the 2017 World Series. I was so we went, and one of the ways we can get into the stadium, because parking is an absolute nightmare at Dodger Stadium, especially in during the playoffs. I went to a playoff game in the 2016 NLCS where they lost to the Cubs. And we parked at a place on top of a hill where I didn't know there was parking there originally. Like it was the overflow of the overflow parking. It was horrible. It took us like a half hour to hike into the stadium.
Wow.
But so for the World Series, my friends and I parked at Grand Central Station in Los Angeles, and kind of near down. It's down the hill from Dodger Stadium, and you can park there for free and take a shuttle in. Now we park there. You know, we had a bottle of Wild Turkey and started drinking a little bit. It's a bourbon, Emmett. Sorry, I take for it. It's okay. It's an alcohol. So
I was picking up what you're putting down. Pre-game in the Dodger game. Yeah.
Yes. So, getting some drinks in, and then we get onto the shuttle, and I'm already pretty buzzed. And we're like the last people on the shuttle, so we're
get kicked out, right?
No, we're totally fine. But we're standing at the front of the bus. The shuttle's a long city bus, so I'm standing there like it's me, the driver on my left, and the door on my right, and this is 2 buses worth of people behind me. And and we're driving, and after about 6-7 minutes, he's kind of going a route that seems like an interesting route to take if you're going to the stadium. And then he kind of like, we stop at a light. He kind of looks down. He's looking at his phone. He's kind of looking around, and then he goes, I'm lost. I don't know how to get to the stadium. I've never done this before. And I'm like, oh, okay. Are you serious? So this is a man who is hired by the Dodgers and by the city to shuttle tons of people just down the road to the stadium. He has no idea where he's going. So we're like, I pull up a map. My friend pulls up a map. Another guy near us is like looking on his phone. And then we kind of start to direct him. And I tell him, like, you've got to turn around. And so now this man is doing like a 60-point turn in a random street where he's turning around this bus. And by the time when you start to do a U-turn on the bus, the people on the bus start to get the vibe of like, oh, this guy doesn't know where he's going. This is we're going the wrong way. And so now people on the bus are starting catching wind of the fact that the driver is going the wrong way. And so now people are starting to mutter, and they're not too happy. And they're like, are you serious? Are we lost? What's going on? Luckily, he was able to turn around. We directed him to where he needed to go, which literally there is a designated lane just for these shuttles where it is walled off by cones for like 4 blocks, and you can't miss it. He missed it. But we got it. We got him to there. He got us to the stadium. We were like 2 hours early anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, it was pretty wild where I was like already pretty buzzed, and now having to
navigate to Dodger Stadium,
navigate this man as he drives a bus of 100 Dodger fans who are angry and anxious for the World
Series,
especially
with the Astros. Oh yeah. God, I remember. I'll give you a couple game stories here. I went to Mariners Blue Jays like in the middle of August. Like this is 2021 season, and obviously our guy, not a guy, but George Springer was on the Blue Jays, and I go there, and obviously I'm gonna trash talk Springer, and turns out the guy, there is a family in front of us of Blue Jays fans, and it was me, I was only on my group trash talking Springer because I hate the Astros, like especially bad because I root for Mariners and Dodgers, and the people behind me. And I was just sitting there, yelling at Springer, and the guy behind me is like, "Fuck you, Springer!" And then and then I start yelling like all this stuff, like cheater. And then I feel bad about it now, but it was so funny at the time. There's a little kid, diehard Blue Jays fan, and he's so salty because like Springer, hate to say it, but he's good. He's like, he's not. We know. God, I wish I had it on video, but it was so funny. And then that was crazy, but crazy, game experiences I have, like craziest event. I have videos of this on Snapchat. Maybe I'll share it on Twitter later. Is the Oregon State game last year, 2021. that was the year of the stadium for me. I also went to a Seahawks Lions game, which was fun in its own. But yeah, I went to Oregon State, and that was some crazy traffic. Like, it was me and like all of my family, and we took a shuttle to get in, and not a shuttle, but like it wasn't an Uber XL, but it was like a taxi minivan because there's like 10 of us, and we had to go to that game, and the traffic was so bad we missed the first drive, which happened to be an Oregon touchdown.
Yeah.
And we finally get into our seats, because you have to show your vaccine card, all that, and kind of the process. And I was, this was the first time I had to show the vaccine cards. I don't know why, but I was kind of nervous. But we got in there all good, and that was a good game. Another underrated thing about the sporting events, Bursch, I don't know if you're into it, but the fans around you are always super chill and super fun. Like, every time I've gone to an event, I get put around like good fans, not like the boring guys. So like it adds to the experience of where like obviously like I had the Springer supporters at the Mariners game, and then I had a couple cool Beavers fans and a bunch of like drunk 20-year-old Ducks fans in the like next to me. It was fun. But yeah, I also remember funny sports moments too is 2015 Super Bowl Seahawks Patriots. I was like, dude, we're about to beat Tom Brady. This was during the cheating allegation, and I was young, so I was holding everything against him. And Russell Wilson, 2-yard line, throws a pick. Malcolm Butler. I was crushed. 5th grade me. I was so mad. I'm like, we have Marshawn Lynch, the best running back in, at that time, best in the league. Maybe AP was better, but I think that was the year he had the whole situation with his kid, so I don't think he was even playing. Yeah. So he was like very limited, but Marshawn was better, and we couldn't hand the ball to beast mode. That's his time to shine. And talking about alluding to earlier in the show, Ryan, we were talking about sports fans going crazy. Everyone was so. I went to the Seahawks Super Bowl parade after they won against the Broncos. That was cool, but my point was you could go to like local butcher shops or meat stores in Olympia, to where I am, and I think it was in Tacoma, which is like a 30-minute drive from here, and they had these like spicy sausage things, like little sausages with Skittles in them, and that sold out. I remember throwing Skittles at the TV during the Super Bowl. Like, I don't know if you as a Dodger fan ever got this into it, or your Packers, or is that who you root for in the NFL? Because you impulse tweeted Aaron Rodgers, and not to get too much onto that, but God, that playoff game, they should have won that. The Niners got lucky twice. Like, they looked like they were going to beat the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And then they started to have bad plays, and then somehow Mike McCarthy started to, he had a horrible play call. Like, the Niners were so lucky. I would have loved to see the Packers Rams in the NFC Championship, but then I don't know if the Rams would even do anything with that weather, because if it would have been in Green Bay, because they're one seed. So yeah, but pretty interesting, man. The sporting events, I'd prefer to go in person, but I'd be broke if I went to every game in person.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Are you going to anything soon? Or are you staying low key? Or
nothing on the docket at the moment, but
you gotta look at Dodgers Astros, man. You have to.
I know that will have to happen at some point. I really should.
Bo Benson, his time starting to, now that he has a Chloe, is everything's starting to get, he's daddy Bo Benson now. I remember when Dan Byer was,
Daddy Dan.
him and it. Yeah. Yes. Daddy Dan, yeah.
Daddy Dan Byer.
Yeah, so now that's Bo Benson. So yeah, but you and like, I feel like going to a Dodger game with Roberto would be really fun.
That'd be wild. That would be wild.
Have you gone with them before? Or
no, I haven't.
I think he
But
goes with his wife and kid too, which is
yeah.
even more funny because Roberto is yelling every possible like horrible thing about Jose Altuve. His
I
kid's
know.
gonna be like saying like F Altuve when she's like 8.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's anything holding him back from doing all that. I think he's
No.
and he goes to games really often too.
Yeah,
He
he
goes,
takes
yeah.
nights off just to go to the game, like a
Mhm.
middle of the week Wednesday. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's perfect, or oh, it's on. It's like, what? Who takes a random Wednesday off? Then he's like,
Right.
at the Dodger game. I'm like, oh, that's why.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you now? I gotta ask you. Have you ever had I brought up Don's name for this because he was in when Ralph had his slip up on the air during the golf thing, and he was in for Iowa Sam. It was the real Don Brown, as Steve Hartman would say. And
Don Brown, yes.
I don't know why he says but yeah, Ralph, he said, oh shit, during this update or something like that. It's a drop in the system. Ramos and Danny G put it in there, but he said it during the update, and I got me thinking, bringing up, Roberto, who's also had some slip ups, I don't know if I can say what he said during cooking with Roberto, but like he stuttered and it came out wrong, and it had something to do with black pepper, and it wasn't like it was pretty bad. I mean, ask him about it, or ask Coop or Eddie or Ben.
For sure.
Yeah, but have you ever had a slip up on air where something slid out of your mouth that you're like, oh, sorry, Iowa Sam or whoever's working that they dumped?
I am knocking on wood right now because I've never been dumped. I've only the only slip ups I have are like
The fighter, God, who was?
yes,
I can't
yes.
remember, but yeah,
when
that one.
when I was so focused on pronouncing Khabib Nurmagomedov that I then subsequently mispronounced Conor McGregor, which was hilarious, and I'm glad Jonas caught it because that's very funny. But other than that, that's my most notable one. And there's just other sometimes you just kind of switch a word around here or there.
Yeah, and
it's that's radio's wild like that because you are live all the time, and you have to be able to go off the cuff. You have to be able to improvise and just work with it.
Isaac Lowenkron, that guy,
yes.
Dude, he was in the other night for Jason and Mike, and I was telling Iowa Sam, I don't think he's gotten back to me, but I was like, that guy, he sounds so young, and he's so like, I know he's not because he's been there forever, but he's so articulate, like the way he crafts. It's a work of art when Iowa's doing it. Like it was a night where the Mets choked against the Phillies, and he was I don't know why he never works the 4 to 11s, but he was that night, and he gave Jason Smith enough crap for like 4 people, and he's like, we actually have audio of the Mets. I love it when he does that. He's the Lord of trending, man. Someone said that on Twitter, and I was like, oh, that's so great. Like Brian Fenley has his words.
That is Anthony
has his audio.
Yeah, Anthony Gargano.
He really is
him the Lord of Trending. So, Ant is great. I miss.
When you play those and it's all it's either like a meme that like is from like 10 years ago or a clip from a movie.
Yeah,
I think we need to. I think you or but this would be Bo's job actually when he comes back. Needs to refresh Ilo's meme library. Get him some new stuff.
Ilo's hilarious, and he brings the energy regardless of the time. It's pretty wild, but he's great.
Him and Ben is a very underrated show.
Man, yeah, I would love to hear that.
It happened. He filled in for Eddie a while ago, and I was like. I think you might have been, is either you or Nick, or Bo or somebody. I remember it was when Eddie was doing his whole, big DC vacation, and I don't know what happened, but Ilo somehow got dragged into the overnight, and he, and then obviously, our guy Marcel in Brooklyn, I gotta go back and listen to how he said Isaac Lowenkron. It was funny. It's like Isaac,
I love Marcel.
Lowcron or Lozencron or
God, I love Marcel so much.
He needs
Since I've
to.
been working all mornings for the past couple months now, I haven't really heard much of Ben's show. Is Marcel still doing his
Oh,
typical?
Marcel is still doing his thing, and
Good.
our guy Ben
Love it.
Mauer is a cheater. Our guy Ben is an absolute cheater. What this guy does, okay? Marcel's food picks, and it's usually one of
Yes.
like 5 things: McDonald's, pizza.
I got it right one time. It was pizza that time. I got it right.
Yeah. What else? Oodles and noodles. Chicken and
French fries.
Chicken patties. French fries with ketchup. Chef Ware. Like there's like a handful of things he has,
Yes.
and Ben will take the joy out of the segment because obviously Marcel, he's he's autistic, so he doesn't pick up on things when Ben asks him questions. So he just thinks, oh, he's asking me a question. So he answers a question, and Ben's like, where do you have him for dinner? What'd you have for dinner? So then Ben, and then he'll start the food picks normally, like, and Ben, he's like, I had McDonald's. He's like, Ben's like McDonald's, and then Eddie's like McDonald's. Roberto's like McDonald's, and Coop is like, I had Marcel, I believe you had salmon with mashed potato or garlic mashed potatoes, gravy, and a salad. And then because Coop goes with what he had for dinner the night before, and Coop eats pretty good food, I gotta say. Like here his food picks.
Yeah.
But yeah, you gotta cover a Coop shift just to give Ben like a bunch of crap for it because it's ruined everything.
I will say, in fairness, the last time I covered that show, I tweeted at Marcel a couple hours ahead of time saying, Marcel,
that's a
what
Bo
did you have for
Benson
dinner
thing.
tonight? I'm just wondering.
That's a Bo Benson thing. You're stealing his God. And he hates oh, this is funny too. Our guy Chris Perfett, who I gotta get him back on for a hot Lions draft talk. He gets him and Bo Benson confused sometimes. And he was like top of the morning, Ben, Eddie, Roberto. And then, our guy Perfett will just start going in with all these different, like, who drops, never heard of them, who the F is that, bleeped out. He's like, Bo, stop it, Bo. That's why I love Marcel for blaming Bo Benson because
that's great.
That also, yeah,
that's good. I gotta find that because I should pull a drop of him yelling at Bo and work that into swing shift.
Yeah, I will find that in the podcast and I'll screen record it. I mean, you might hear some voiceover in there, but I will screen record it and send it to you. After we're done recording, I'll go.
Perfect. I just need the time and I can hunt it down. It's
okay. I had to do that for Jonas Jonas Perfett and Nick Battaglia a while ago for nice. It was the we don't need to bring Jonas in here drop. I don't know who it was, and I don't think they should be named because they would get heat on Twitter. But one of the board ops, I hope it wasn't like Ramos or something, went in and deleted the we don't need to bring Jonas in here. And it I don't know if it was a board off or technical error, but it seemed...
in fairness, I think what happens there is our system does do a thing where it will cycle out stuff that's been in the system for a while, and if it's not like archived in a certain way, it will disappear. So that's why like sometimes there will be drops that suddenly disappear. It's unfortunate, and there are ways to make sure it doesn't happen. So, but
whoever put it in there, I know who it is. I'm pretty sure, but they don't need to get called out on the show. We're respectful here.
That's right.
But our guy Alex Teicher, technical producer, vegan extraordinaire,
yes.
Weed Nation host, Shallow Oceans, and that guy could be a life coach. But he goes on whenever Jonas would either guest on the Odd Couple or fill in for Rob or Chris, he'd play we don't need to bring Jonas in here. And they were over, Perfett and Battaglia were kind of over. Like I don't know if they just didn't want to do it during their shift. So I went in and sent Chris the time of like it was really easy to find. I just had to search on Apple Podcasts, like the Odd Couple, Jonas Knox. First thing come up. Thank God Alex is actually working a show for once. And it's like 32 seconds in. We don't need to bring Jonas in.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it was great. And shout out me for bringing the Fox Sports Radio history back to.
That's right.
I'm
yeah.
sure it would have got done anyway, but still, I deserve credit. Yeah,
It wouldn't have gotten done. You did in fact save that drop. That is entirely you, because
yeah.
any of my coworkers could have done that. I could have even done that, but no, we didn't. That was you, and so you.
Shout out to me and Chris Buffett for Chris,
Yes,
putting up the audio,
yes.
chopping it up and doing all that. And yeah, it was fun. And, I got to ask you too, I know we've been going at it a while, but how did you and Bo decide to start off the Swing Shift podcast? Like, how'd that happen? And how'd Bo become your partner? I mean, there's half the FSR producers and board ops are Dodger fans. So how'd that all happen?
That's a good question. So, I mean, basically, it's something I wanted to do for a long time, is to do a podcast in some way. I'd been thinking about doing that since college, and yeah, I graduated in 2015. Um, it was one of those things where like, oh, I should try to, I should start a podcast. Like that'd be a fun hobby to do. And it kind of, I mean, I'm sure you've heard it. There, a lot of people, basically there's this, generalization that like, oh, everyone has a podcast, right? Like everyone, it's just
Yeah.
kind of how it is. Like everyone's got a podcast now. And so when you hear stuff like that, it can be pretty discouraging. Yeah, where you're like, well, what's the point? Like it's just going to be lost in the noise. Nobody's going to listen. It doesn't matter. So for the longest time, I didn't really, I thought about doing it, and I thought it sounded fun, but it was pretty easy to talk myself out of it because of,
Yep.
feeling like it wasn't going to be fruitful in any way. But I slowly, realized that mindset doesn't matter. Like that sort of belief doesn't matter. If you want to do something, do it. It doesn't matter. And that's been my attitude this whole time with Swing Shift. Is I love doing it. It's a fun hobby. And the fact that I work in sports talk radio, it makes a whole hell of a lot of sense for me to do a sports podcast. And so once I started working there, I was around, I have all this access to editing software and to, the actual studios with boards and microphones. And
wait, did you record in a studio? Where do you, because I think Bo records from home, because
the
kind of sounds
first
like an echo.
the first one we recorded in studio.
Wow.
Which I guess it's, statute of limitations. I can say that now. I don't think we're technically allowed to, but it doesn't matter. We're not going to lose our jobs or anything. It was in in the auxiliary studio at Fox Sports Radio. We did our first one.
If you're good at if you know your audio, you can tell when it's in studio. I mean, I think both of our mics are pretty good, but like studio mics, I gotta find a way to get one of those and get like a studio, but like you want to get more money. But yeah, you can tell the difference. Like no echo, like no background at all. Like it's pretty obvious compared to like the at-home studios we're both in right now. So
yeah, exactly. I had wanted to. We had access to this stuff, so I'm like, why would we not try to use it? And basically, I started at Fox Sports Radio in the fall of 2015. And Bo got hired early 2019, I want to say, maybe 2018. And I had wanted to do a podcast in some capacity. I had talked, a friend of mine, we talked about doing an entertainment type of podcast and a sort of comedy podcast and stuff like that. But there wasn't anything specific. And the hard thing with podcasting is like, it's really
finding your niche. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
The more specific you can be, especially when you don't have an audience to start, if you're a name, if you're a big time celebrity and you're just like, I want to start a podcast, then it doesn't matter. You can talk about whatever the hell you want. The people are going to listen because you have the audience already. If you're a nobody, you have to be specific. So I there's nothing that I know better in sports than the Dodgers. My love of baseball, my love of the Dodgers is the whole reason why I work in sports talk radio. So I wanted to do a podcast on the Dodgers, and there's a lot of people I work with who also like the Dodgers. but the difference and the reason why I approached Bo with the idea is because I don't want to make it sound too weird or romantic in any way. but honestly, like, if you're gonna do a podcast with someone, you want it to be with someone that you feel like you can gel really well with in terms of when you conversate, and you have the ability to sort of riff on different things with one another. And with Bo, I gravitated to his sense of humor instantly when he was
sense of humor.
Yeah, when he was an intern, and I met him, I thought he was hilarious, and that is something that I really look for in in my friends, in my relationships. Like, I gravitate to sense of humor.
Oh, for sure, me too. Because I mean, especially for relationships, because I'm like, blind, if it's Blindside Sports. So like, looks, I mean, they're a little overrated. I'm sure for you, I mean, they're not. But like, yeah, I mean, if you're funny, especially in a girl, for me, then yeah, that's A+. And I have friends who are funny too. I mean, even me and you, like, we've been making jokes and roasting David Gascon or Joe Benson, or even Vince, who is in the alumni association. I would say.
Straight, take it straight.
We had to blame him so no one got in trouble. So.
That's right. But yeah, so Bo was a guy that I gravitated to because of his personality, and I was looking for, I wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't want to do it on my own. And so one day at work, I literally was just like, I want to do a Dodger podcast, and I would like to do it with you. it was weird because, like, I felt like I was asking a girl out, like,
for real.
It was bizarre. Like, but he was, and Bo will be the first to tell you that, like, his face can sometimes not give off an ounce of emotion.
He sounds like it too. Like, I couldn't imagine, like, yeah, but he has a funny voice too. And
yes.
There was something on Twitter and it sounded like Bo, but Bo yelling, right? And I added him, and I'm like, Bo when he's angry. And obviously Bo, like, I don't think he could yell. Like, I don't know what that would be like. I think that'd be scary if Bo were to yell at you. Sure. I think you'd really have to like do something to his wife or something, or hack a Steam account or whatever.
Yeah,
like, he's so monotone. He's like, yeah, it's a Bo here.
Exactly. But so I asked him, and he was just like, yeah, I want to do that. I'm down. And then he, like, texted me later that night, and he was like, he straight up said, like, I know I have constant resting bitch face, but, like, honestly, I really want to do that.
I could hear him say it too.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, no, I want to as well. And even then, that we had that conversation, I want to say in the summer of 2019 or something like that, and we didn't do our first episode until February of 2020.
You guys got screwed over too, because
that was the other thing.
Yeah.
we procrastinated for a long time in terms of actually starting it, and then one night we're like, okay, we're gonna actually do this. We did it late at night in the studio. We recorded for 2 hours about a whole lot of nothing, but it was a blast. And then 2 weeks later, the pandemic hit and everything shut down.
I still remember. I can tell you where I was that night. I think it was like March 11th or whatever. I was in the car, just got like dinner with like my grandparents and my dad, and I was like, at this point we were all still in the Corona. For me, it went in 3 phases. It went Corona, haha, beer, haha, funny, and then it went to, oh god, we might have a situation here. And then it went to this March 11th, faithful, I believe it was a Wednesday, where first notification, Rudy Gobert's tested positive for COVID. And you remember, I know you and Bo talked about it. You guys are in studio, and he was a guy who was doing this, like rubbing his mic, like, haha, COVID, haha, nothing's gonna happen. And overall, it might have been a funny bit, right? Whatever. Gets COVID, shuts down the whole NBA. And then next day was the NCAA tournament. And then, oh yeah, I'm skipping one. I remember getting home finally. And that was when the NBA shut down. And then I had the, obviously NBA, you got to go to Chris Broussard, you got to go to the Odd Couple. And they had like their they used to do like back when they did the hot seat, they had to stop that because this was such break. Like a sports league is just like never shut down. It's like a pandemic. And that happened. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I go to school the next day and there's all these talks of like, I keep forgetting Tom Hanks got COVID too. I remember that. Jason Smith. Jason Smith was very, very, very he was affected
that rocked his world. Yes.
Yeah. And I go to school the next day and like teacher was like, oh, we might not be back here. And I was like, they might be right. And then I go to school the next day and I was like, yeah, before they even said anything, they were like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I don't think we'll come back here for a very long time, like after today. And I remember the class, I was in my fourth period history and I get like, I'm on my, I'm scrolling through, it was Twitter or something like that. Cause it was kind of, I think all the teachers knew. So it was kind of chill. And I see Washington schools are shut down and I'm like, oh God, this is actually serious. Like, and then we were out of school for, it didn't get back to complete normal until September of 21. So like, I remember exactly where I was the night of the whole sports shutdown. And I still remember the toilet paper shortages. And then do you remember burschinger? Do you remember when they had the whole Wendy's situation where there's a talk that Wendy's might have to stop selling beef for a while because there was a beef shortage?
Yes.
I remember that. And then I think the weirdest part about all of it too was, when these places would do like McDonald's, for example, you went into McDonald's, there's still McDonald's in my area that still do the drive-through only. Like it's just not being able to walk into a restaurant was just so weird. Like, and, then the masks, which obviously, they had to happen to, keep everything safe. That I remember walking with the mask and it's just crazy how if I was started the podcast back then, I think I could, like, I was procrastinating for a long time, kind of like you, and I'm glad I didn't because I didn't have the computer or the mic yet. It would have been, I know our guy Perfett hates it, but the AirPods and the phones. So I'm glad I didn't. But at the same time, I could have talked about so much. Like it was acceptable to talk about like Call of Duty on Sports Talk Radio or something back then, because we had a Blind Scott Power Hour on the Ben Maller Show. We had a Sean the Hood Guy Power Hour on the Ben Maller Show. Jonas would talk about like random stuff and his hand sanitizer. Like it would have been such a good time for radio. And I remember, like my thought was like, oh God, these, like, sorry, Jonas, like your show is good. And then obviously, nothing happened. Like if anything, I think radio was better during COVID than it was pre-COVID. And I think it's better now. Like it, as a producer is, I'm sure Bo Benson could say the same thing. It taught you guys how to be like on your feet quick and come up with some just random BS that's entertaining.
Yeah. It was a wild time. Like it was, because what was crazy too was, especially in that summer of 2020, when we're kind of talking about, it was a lot of,
are we going to have an
talk.
NFL season? Are we going to have that? Are we going to have a college season? And then, and
it was weird because like you kind of had to, like, there were requisite things you had to talk about in terms of like, are we going to play these things? Are these things going to happen? But also those conversations got really old really fast. And those topics were like, they were exhausting because like,
and then especially there's some, people in media where you just, they have a horrible take and you're just like, oh. And you being the producer too. I mean, you can't just, oh yeah, this stupid, this is what, you can't just do that. Like you're not the co-host.
Right.
So like, I'm sure there's, because it was very, COVID is a very, people are either really one way or really the other way on the topic. And it, I can name him now because he's often, but Clay Travis there. I remember callers would, because, obviously, sleep schedule was gone during quarantine. I remember I'd have it on while playing games because it's not like I, agreed. Like it angered me, but hearing people disagree with him was so funny on like these callers. And Ben Maller gets super, and I love Ben. So like this is all jokes, but Ben Maller gets super flustered when you disagree with them. Like on the Clippers, which is obvious because I mean, let's be real. Like I think he does it as a troll mechanism. I
Sure.
mean, to get under Coop and Roberto and all the Laker guys, but
Yeah.
he gets so flustered, and it's only on like topics that he's biased on. Clay Travis, he got flustered over every topic, which made it so much more better to listen to. I don't know how you could work like Roberto, his best laugh in the radio. Like it's funny too whenever the producer talks. Like I'm sure we can go on podcast and pull audio of Roberto's laugh in the background. So it was Ramos for so long. It was Ramos for years, and then Roberto got promoted, and that's when the laugh got he has a really good laugh.
Oh man.
Yeah, Ramos is good in his own weight. Like Ramos, I got him to play his Joe Flacco montage on Cavino and Rich a while ago.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, John Ramos.
John's awesome. The John Ramos show is my favorite thing on radio. It's not.
Were you on the Brian No Dan Byer show today, or was that?
No, I was in the back. I wasn't, but I was there. But
yeah, John Ramos. Yeah, I have a friend whose last name's Ramos too, and ever since I met John, or heard John, I can't help but to call my friend Ramos.
I need to,
and it stuck. Everyone calls him Ramos, and now it's so good.
I'm going to tell you, this is one of my favorite stories from behind the scenes, and I'm not going to say their name, but we had a coworker who she was an editor, and very nice person, very lovely to work with. She because of like the nature of the pandemic and everything, like obviously Doug wasn't in studio really ever for quite some time, and he still is mostly doing his show at home. He's popped in on occasion though, but and that's like that's how almost all shows are now, and that's fine. That's how it is. So someone told her to go to print something out and how did it go? I swear it was print something out and bring it to Doug, because I think Doug happened to be there in studio that day. And so she prints it out, and she walks up to Ramos, or no, damn it, fuck, I'm telling the story wrong. That's not what happened. Okay, basically,
call John Ramos on the podcast.
She was asked to pull a piece of audio for Doug.
Oh.
And she does it, and Ramos walks by the edit room, and she says something, and she's like, Doug, I got that audio. I got the audio, Doug. Something. This is kind of, in essence, she called Ramos Doug, and Ramos kind of looks and goes, what? She's like, you're Doug Gottlieb, right? And he goes, no, I'm John Ramos. and we're like, what? She was very new.
I can tell just by the way Ramos sounds and the way Doug sounds that they look completely different.
Yes.
Like
they are not in any way. I'm sure it's the only time in either men's life that one of them would be confused for the other one. That's how we'll put it.
Yeah. Now one of my favorites behind, it's not behind because it's on the radio, but Monty Bolaños. I think I just butchered that, and I'm gonna rib people for. Oh, but yeah,
Bolaños,
yeah, Broussard would do every update. He couldn't say your name. And it would always, Jonas did it. I think Doug Gottlieb even did it the other day too. And every time it's just like, it's like one of the most complicated names at the network. I think, if not the most complicated. Yeah. So it hasn't gotten too bad yet, but it has potential.
You have to, like, when you're letting the host know, you have to like type it out phonetically. because you can't. I don't. There's a way to type with an Enya on the N, but I don't know how to do it.
I
So
think
like
you have
when
to
I
like change the language on Windows.
yeah, exactly. So when I sent it to LeVar for Up on Game last week, I spelled it like Monsee, and
Her
then
name's the first name, even my phone, who's pretty bad at because like when I followed her on Twitter, like my phone's really, voiceover is not good at pronouncing things, and it said it right, surprisingly.
there you
But
go.
the last name,
Yeah,
the last
I had
name,
to I had to put BOLANYOS.
and
Like
he
I
probably
had
still butchered it.
no, he
That's
got it
funny.
right. He got it right. LeVar got it right. But,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Ryan, it's been fun, man. I know I'm sure you got stuff to do. You got to work at like 7 tomorrow, so I'm gonna let you go and go eat another fish sandwich from McDonald's. So yeah.
I know it's some fish and chips tonight. My girlfriend's bringing fish and chips.
Ooh.
It's very nice.
All right, man.
But
It's been
yeah.
fun. Go follow me on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter, and shout out to Bo. See ya.